Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. I'm your host, Will Bland, and today we have a friend of mine joining us to talk a little bit about team dynamics and growth beyond the educational platform. But before I introduce our guest, I just want to say, as always, thank you for tuning in and thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey. This is really just all about finding ways to help you grow. So we bring in special guests to share their stories, their experiences, their educational knowledge, so that you can find pieces that are helpful to you and apply them to your journey. The only ask is that you like and subscribe on your listening platforms, leave a 5-star review, comment with your questions, your thoughts to join the conversation. And if you find it informational and helpful, please share it with someone, with a friend, with a family member, with a random person passing by on the street, whoever you think it might help, share the information. And let's get right into our guest now. So I met this guy actually beginning in 2017 through the entrepreneurial focused MBA program at the University of Louisville. So just from our experience together in that program, I know firsthand how much knowledge he has to offer when it comes to understanding team dynamics, business planning, relationships, and so much more. He's gone on since then to become the director of sales for Pistil Data, which is a cannabis data analytics company that collects and analyzes e-commerce data from approximately 90% of retailers in North America. He brings a background in medical care, tech entrepreneurship, as well as SaaS sales to Pistil Data, where he leads teams in revenue generation. Joining us all the way from Detroit, Michigan, Alex Zackucia, welcome to the show.
What's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me. I was really looking forward to this today.
Absolutely. I know it's going to be a great conversation just from the experiences we've had together. And I know you bring so much more to the table from your experience beyond the program. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do currently?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, like you teed it off, I'm the director of sales right now over at Pistil Data. We're helping brands and retailers across the country make better decisions around product assortment, pricing, and discounts. I'm not too sure how much your listeners know about the cannabis space, but it's incredibly competitive, extremely compressed. Each state has its own hurdles to overcome every single day due to the federal illegality of the industry, right? So, in the end of the day, we want people to be successful. And what we're doing is helping support brands and retailers on the data front.
This sounds extremely exciting. One, for an industry that you can be passionate about, but also it sounds like there's a lot of unique challenges and obstacles that you have to face when it comes to regulations, dealing with different states. So that's exciting in itself. And I'm sure that we'll get into some of that as we get a little bit more into obstacles. So let's dive into, first off, a little bit about our experiences in the MBA program, some lessons learned from that. So just to begin with, how would you describe your overall experience through the MBA program?
Oh man, great question. I am eternally grateful for my experience from that program. I truly am one to believe that I don't think I'd be where I'm at today in my career without the knowledge, not only that I learned from the program, but the knowledge I learned from the people around me. I've said it multiple times to people I've spoken to since graduating that I truly believe I learned probably the same, if not more, from the environment that was cultivated there with the different perspectives of people that they put in our class, right? It kind of ties me back to the old saying of like, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're not in the right room. And I think what the University of Louisville did a fantastic job with was put the right people in the same room to learn from each other.
Absolutely. So it sounds like one of the things that I thought of just when I was looking at that question, listening to you respond,
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of people who talk about education in a way that they're like, you don't necessarily need school, or you know, is it worth the value? Like, some people go on to do great things with only a high school background or even without a high school diploma. And it sounds like you gained a great value from it. And I know that I can say for myself as well, gained a great value. I think that the big piece to that is, are you getting a degree that truly adds value to what you're trying to do? How can you apply it? And so that's what I want to get into with you today. How what we learned from it that we were able to take forward and apply. So one of the big pieces, team dynamics, and we went through multiple team changes through the course of just a 20-month program. So for a brief background, just a brief setup of it, the beginning of the program, the class was split into 4 to 5 person teams, which each team worked together throughout the course of the program to build a business that we took to business plan competitions and pitched to potential investors on the back end of the program. So we started with a team of 5 people, and throughout the program, there ended up being a person that wasn't working out with the team that ended up stepping away from the team. And then later on, as we reached the back end of the program for business plan competitions, another team member decided to go a different route in the program, in which case we picked up a different member who had been working with another team the whole time. So we had a lot of movement just in that 20 months. So what did those changes teach you about team dynamics?
I think in my time in the program and all the changes we went through with our team, and we had a tremendous amount of success with our venture that we launched from the program. But I think it comes down to, and this is hard. I think I do this every day, being in a leadership position in my current role and in my previous role, is trying to find a way to surround yourself with people that share the same vision and passion for the end goal as you do, and that want to work as hard as you want to reach that goal. And that's hard to do. I think Pistil's going through quite a bit of a growth period right now, where we are adding people to our team quite a bit. I brought on a few salespeople just this past week, and we're looking to add more. And we are very calculated about our hiring process, right? Just to tie that in a little bit, right? We're very calculated. We're very slow through the process. I kind of tie it back to the old saying, hire slow, fire fast. Sounds kind of harsh, but it's true, right? We really want to only do it one time. There's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into building a team, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to surround yourself with what I call A players. There's always going to be A players, B players, and C players. I got this saying where, keep your A's, coach your B's, and fire your C's. But it's tricky though. There's no clean cut science behind it, and I think that the strongest teams are the ones that are all bought into the same end goal.
Mm-hmm. Definitely have to have buy-in and a common goal that everyone's working toward. It reminded me of the piece in the program where one of the books we had to read was Good to Great. And so we quoted it all the time through the program. And that was, you have to get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off of the bus.
That's right.
So it sounds like you all implement that there.
Yep.
So I talk about individual goals a lot, probably more frequently than I do team goals. And there's a ton of obstacles that people face and challenges that you face just in planning a goal for yourself. Mm-hmm. When you start talking about working on a goal as a team, there's so many more variables that become involved, because now you have, people with different personalities, people with different motivations, all these different driving factors that get thrown into the equation. So what's an obstacle that stood out to you, either from working with the program or just any point in life or your position with Pistil? How did you overcome it or learn from it?
I think in my time working with Pistil, there's been, let me dial back a little bit. In the cannabis industry alone, there's a ton of obstacles, right? So not only are we facing obstacles as an industry, our company is a startup as well, and we have to face obstacles every single day as we're building a product that's novel for the space and that's never been deployed before until Pistil. So there's always going to be ambiguity along the way, and the ways to overcome that are to surround yourself with the right people and that share the same vision, like I just said. And if you're moving down a path and there's no obstacles, I don't think you're down the right path, in my opinion. I truly feel that any path worth taking is going to have obstacles, and that's something you need to embrace, right? Not every day is going to be sunshines and rainbows, and you got to meet challenges head on. That's the only way to grow.
Absolutely. Um, in order to grow, you have to find adversity. You have to find those challenges, those obstacles, and then it's all about how you face them and understanding that, if you fail or if you fall or you struggle with an obstacle, doesn't mean that you actually fail as long as you learn something from it and take something away from it.
That's absolutely right, man. I think I've been fascinated with the concept of failure for quite some time in my life. Early on in my life, I had quite a bit of success in just about everything I touched. And then I faced a very pivotal moment, which really taught me a lot about failure. And ever since then, there's been little bits along the way that you know, teach me a little bit here and there. And you hit the nail on the head, right? You can't view failure as a failure unless if you learn something from it, right? I think so many people in this world view change as if it would be worse than the unhappy situation that they're in right now, and that failure is such a daunting thing to go through. But I read a quote a long time ago. It was actually during our program, and it's stuck with me ever since. It's by Winston Churchill, and it's success is moving from failure to failure with no less enthusiasm. And I live and breathe by that every single day.
Yes, I love that quote. I've definitely heard that one before, and it's a great one to live by, because obstacles, failure. They're guaranteed in life if you're working toward anything. If you're challenging yourself, if you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, going after anything, those challenges and obstacles, you just have to embrace and know that they're just part of it.
No, absolutely. I think complacency is I view complacency as worse than change and worse than failure, in my opinion. And when I feel as if I'm not challenging myself or I'm not learning something new every day or pushing my boundaries, that's when I get uncomfortable. And I try to portray that and live and breathe by it so that just maybe I can rub off on someone who's thinking about heading down that path.
That's a fantastic approach. Now, I like to get deep when I can, but I also don't want to like push any boundaries. So, are
Sure.
you willing to share a little bit about the story you were just had mentioned in regards to a pivotal point in your life?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I actually don't share this story with many people, but I'd be more than happy to share it today with the hopes of, providing some inspiration. So growing up my entire life, I was obviously fascinated with the medical field, and I have quite a bit of background in that, being that I worked at a trauma one facility in Detroit, Michigan, where I was a nursing assistant, and I was pretty bent on heading down the path to become a physician. I had seen good and bad physicians in my time in the hospital, and I wanted to be a great one. And I had always been a great student. I really have. I love school. I love learning. I'm a good test taker. And I went to take the MCAT, which is the placement exam for medical school, and I got what would be considered an average score. And so I got waitlisted, and I did not get accepted. And at that point, I had told so many people throughout my life, my friends, my family, anyone who I'd come in contact with, that this is the route I was heading down. And when I didn't receive acceptance, even though it was a wait list, right? When I didn't receive acceptance, that was really the first time, Will, that I felt as if I failed, right? And it broke me down because that was the pivotal moment for my life to begin the next chapter, to head down this route that I thought I was going to affect change with, right? And
Hmm.
man, that it crushed me. It crushed me, and I'll never forget it. I became pretty unhappy, right, and pretty sad. And I'll never forget. I walked into my father's office one day, and he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "What are you doing?" And I mean, just by him saying that, I knew exactly what he was getting at. He knew that wasn't me. He knew that wasn't me to accept that and to wallow. And so I always knew I had a passion for business. My father's been a lifelong entrepreneur. I've seen him grow a company. I've seen him have tough times too, right? That's what the startup, the entrepreneurial life is all about. And he was passionate about me getting into business, and I was passionate about it too. I always knew that I would look to start my own business one way or another one day. And so at that point I knew that I had to make a change. I had to head down a different route, right? I had to start moving in a direction and stop
Mm-hmm.
sitting there and wondering why, and wallowing in my own thought. So that's when I decided to head down the route to the MBA program, which quite frankly changed my life, man. I learned knowledge that has put me in the position I'm in today. I've met great people like yourself that I've kept in contact with. It was a phenomenal period of my life.
Man, that's a powerful story. And people say when one door closes, another one opens, and it sounds like, you know, you hit that wall, you hit that, that obstacle that broke you down. And sometimes you do hit those powerful moments in life, and they do kind of make you take a step back, or they take you down for a little bit, but it's all about getting back up. And
Hmm.
that's exactly what you did. You got back up, and you found a new passion, you found a new goal to work toward. And thank you for being vulnerable, for sharing that story, because I think that in itself, so many people can relate to that story of hitting one of those walls, or hitting a failure that really brought you down, but then bouncing back from it.
And I can't even give all the credit to myself, man. I think my father was a big piece of it. It's about surrounding yourself with people that truly care about you and want the best for you and are willing to tell you, the hard truth, and to help pick you back up when you're down. It's incredibly important. So
Absolutely. So to jump back into a little bit on outside of the deep topic, we'll get back to some goaltending stuff, some MBA stuff, and some work stuff. So you also work full time through the program, on top of a demanding class schedule. We were doing 3 hour nights, 3 nights a week through a large part of the program. What did you learn about work life balance, and how do you apply that now?
what I learned is that I'm capable of a lot more than I thought I was. That's truly true, man. That was a very rigorous program, fast paced, a lot of knowledge to pack in, and I didn't have the business background. I was a biology undergrad, so a lot of this was my first time, you know, hearing this type of content.
Hmm.
And what I would say about balance is this: for anyone out there that is, working their ass off and putting in a lot of hours, I got all the respect to you, but also find time to step away too. Also find time to spend time with family, spend time with friends, reset. I did that through the program. I would come home quite often to Detroit to spend time with family. I would still step out on the weekends in Louisville to hang out with friends. And then when it came time
Hmm.
for Monday, I felt refreshed, even though most people would maybe want to spend their weekend relaxing and laying on the couch watching a movie. I still wanted to go out and maybe have a late night or two with some friends and make some memories, because when it came time for Monday, I felt as if I had treated myself and now I'm ready to go to work again. Um, it balances everything in life.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've talked about with a lot of other people too, you know, balance can be different things to different people. It's about identifying the things that are important to you. For you, it was taking the time to maintain your relationships, outside of what you were doing for school and work, and making sure that you fostered those. And sometimes it came at the sacrifice of some sleep, and some
Mhm.
longer nights. But it's about enjoying the journey, and that's a great takeaway in terms of finding the balance for yourself.
No, absolutely. You mentioned in the beginning of the show, I'm big on my relationships, man. I'm a very much a people's person, and I love to stay in contact with those that invest in me. And my friends are some of the best people, and they're the ones who help me get through the program by help providing that escape for me. So
Absolutely. So I know you went on to, build some success, and work hard to get to the position you're at now with Pistil Data, after the program. So what kind of obstacles have you faced along the way that you've learned from? So outside of the program, outside of necessarily a work one, but what's been some obstacle to get to where you're at now?
hmm, that's a great question. I think I've had various obstacles in every, professional role I've been in since the program. Um, One that I could touch on would be, the company that I was with during the program when I got my first, outbound sales role. Uh, I won't mention the company that I was with, but I truly felt as if they could have provided a lot more upfront training to people like myself, given that how big they were, how deep the organization was. And what that taught me, though, was I had to do a lot of self teaching with regard to cold calling and how to prospect, how to manage a pipeline, and what worked and what didn't. And it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot because there's not always going to be someone there to teach you, and you got to find your own way sometimes. And luckily, I was able to kind of foster a mentor there after kind of proving my work ethic, and he ended up being one of the most influential people in my life outside of my family and my friends, and I still keep in contact with him to this day. But outside of work, I would say some of the obstacles I face now, would be trying to I'm incredibly passionate about what I do now, and we just spoke about the topic on balance, but I still think that I could probably become better at balancing now today. I put in a lot of long days and late nights. I work on the weekends sometimes, and that's all great because I love what I do and I don't view it as work. But I think that I could find a little bit more balance now. That's probably an obstacle that I need to try to recalibrate or recalculate.
For sure. I think that we all can.
Yeah.
And it requires self awareness to even say that. It requires some
Mm.
self awareness to identify, I'm doing better than I used to do, but I still have some work I can do. We're never perfect. We're all human.
No, absolutely. I think nothing's ever perfect, and we can always get better one way or the other. There's a reason why professional athletes still practice, right? Even with how good they are. So I think that's something that I would like to that I have put it into my goal setting for this year, and it's a work in progress.
I love to hear it. So some people have a fear of talking about their goals, either because they think someone might steal their idea, or they just don't want people to judge them if they fail. So it creates this fear inside of them, like, I don't want to share it because, what if I don't succeed? Then people might judge me. What are your thoughts on talking about and sharing your goals with others?
If you would ask me this question after I didn't get my acceptance into medical school, I would have answered it very differently than I would today. I would say it's important to share your goals and your ambitions with people as long as you're in the right crowd of people that are credible and can lend value and feedback in a way, whether it's positive or negative, right? Hearing negative feedback or hearing criticism can be powerful, and it's needed sometimes. As
Hmm.
long as that person is coming from a place of love and compassion, and that they truly want to help you, right? Um, and to not share your goals or your ambitions due to failure, that's tricky. That's a daunting thing. It really is. And I'm thinking a lot about that pivotal moment I had. But ever since then, my perspective of failure has changed so much, and I strive every day to surround myself with the right crowd so that I do feel comfortable sharing my goals and ambitions, whether I succeed or not.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm quoting it exactly right, but I've heard people say, don't share big dreams with small minded people. So I love
Very
that you
true.
brought up, it matters the group of people that you share the information with, but I've found it to be so helpful to it, put it out to the universe. And by sharing the idea, by sharing the dream and the passion and the vision, the universe tends to put things in place to help you achieve it. People tend to want to help you make a relationship or make a connection, or offer a piece of feedback or connect you to something that you need as a resource. I've found that to be true, but I think it does 100% matter who it is you're sharing it with, because on the same coin on the other side, you share it with somebody who has a negative way of thinking, or is small-minded or doesn't have a growth mindset, they start to add negativity, and they start to say, well, did you think about this, and bring all of the other things. It's one thing to poke holes to help somebody grow and to challenge and ask questions, but it's another thing when you give it to somebody who just doesn't have a growth mindset and shoots it down. So I think that was a great point you brought up.
No, 100%. You hit the nail on the head. It's about the crowd. And then when you talked about, I want to touch on a point you brought up when you talked about, kind of putting energy and focus towards your goal, and then the universe tends to give back. Um, I've heard many people say, oh, how lucky someone is, or for maybe getting a position or getting an opportunity, right? And I think about that a lot too, because I think I found that I don't really necessarily believe in the concept of luck. I think that luck comes from preparation and timing, right? Giving energy towards that goal you're trying to reach, whether it's educating yourself on a topic or, going to the gym, working out, whatever it is, you're preparing for that moment. And when that moment comes, you're prepared to accept it. You're prepared to meet it head on, and to succeed. So, I think the first step is to figure out, what your goal is, and to begin to make a plan and put energy towards it, and surround yourself with the right people.
Absolutely. And people say you create your own luck. That
That's
comes through
right.
that hard work and that consistency and sticking with it. So we've gotten through some great stuff. A fantastic, incredible story that you shared that I think will inspire many people to action in their journey, and to overcome adversity when they cross it. So on the back end, just we've hit some great points, but what are one or two of the most important keys to success when it comes to team dynamics, balance, just goals in general from your experience in life?
I think when it comes to reaching a goal, it's all about being persistent and consistent. Um, Having a plan in place too, having actionable steps along the way. While the end goal is always very enticing to look at every day, right? You need to have actionable steps along the way, micro goals that you can reach to keep yourself motivated by success on a day-to-day basis. You're a gym guy, I'm a gym guy too. And, whether you have a weight loss goal in mind, or, a certain figure that you're trying to reach, you're never going to get there in a day. And if you constantly focus on that end goal, it's good to have it in the back of your mind in hindsight, but there has to be steps along the way, to reach, because that little bit of success when you reach those micro goals is what keeps you going to want to reach the next level.
Yes, having milestones, incremental goals along the way is crucial. I'll share one more point to go along with it, just to help grow on to that point. It made me think of Dave Ramsey, how he set up baby steps to building wealth. And when he set up the debt snowball, which is paying off all your debts, he says list them smallest to largest in terms of the debts that you have, and pay off the smallest one first. And people always question, well, what if that one has a higher interest rate, or whatever, and throw these questions out. And he says that's not the point. It may have like there may be other stuff with higher interest rates, but by you can get the smallest one paid off the quickest, and then you get excited about it and it builds momentum, and then you start to get some traction toward what you're working toward. You get excited to see it, and it makes you want to work harder and harder, and then you keep on rolling it into the next debt and the next debt. So it was a relation point that just popped in my mind, made me think of it, because that's a fantastic point you shared. uh, is there anything else you'd like to share, a question I didn't ask, or anything that you think would be helpful to the audience?
You asked me a lot of great questions today, man. I think I want to pose a question to you. Uh, you're one of my you're someone I still keep in touch with from the program. A great friend. I learned a ton from you in the program. You had a lot of different dynamics that you were juggling, from family to work to your time in the military. Talk to me a little bit about what you did to balance all that, because I found that fascinating. I thought that I had a busy schedule and a lot to manage, but then you're on my team, and I learned a lot from you and in your time management.
Well, first, I mean, I appreciate that. It was definitely people use the metaphor of I think a duck on water. It looks calm on the surface, but underneath the water, the feet are churning a mile a minute. Honestly, the MBA program was one of the most difficult times in my life in terms of balancing. Um, so Brittany and I had just had Aaliyah like 2 months before the program started. So we have a 2-month-old daughter, working full time, coming to class at night, and then trying to maintain marriage and friendships and deal with having a new child and learn that. I actually had a turning point in the middle of the program in which I was trying to be great at everything. And there was so much going on that I didn't realize it was taking away from my relationship with Brittany.
Mm,
In my mind, I was thinking, everything that I'm doing is for our future. I'm working toward growth. I'm trying to make myself better so that I can be in positions to create more success in the future. So I'm thinking, we knew it would be a time commitment. We knew it would be demanding. Um, and the truth is, Brittany felt like a stay-at-home mom. I got up and left so early in the morning that I only saw Aaliyah for like a second, if even that, before I left for the day, and then was going straight to class that night. Aaliyah was already in bed by the time I got home. And then on nights that I didn't have class, I was doing homework or studying because I cared about doing well in the program. So I'm doing everything I can to try to do well in the program. And so you saw me doing well in the program, but the truth is, it came at the sacrifice of that relationship. And about halfway through the program, it came a night that Brittany and I sat down, and she told me she was unhappy, and it really just tore me up. I saw a lot of divorce and unhealthy relationships growing up, from my parents and just other people around me, and that's the most important relationship to me, to foster, to water the seeds of that relationship, and I lost it for a second.
mm,
And when she told me that, it was a wake up call. And, I started to sacrifice in a few other areas, and I started to be more deliberate and intentional in the time that I gave to her, that I took away from other things, whether it was, doing a work activity after work to try to build relationships with people at work. I started to forego those. Sometimes I cut studying a little bit short and was like, I'll do good enough. It's cool if I don't get an A. Like, what matters is this relationship. And so it took a rebalancing. And like I said, nobody's ever perfect. And I
mm.
was unaware. It's great when you're aware and you're like, I need to work on this balance, but I didn't even know. And there's a quote that I always bring up, and that's, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And it was never more true than that moment in the program, because I try to prioritize everything, but it came at a sacrifice. So that's my learning point from the
Wow,
experience in the program.
that's powerful, man. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I knew that you were balancing a lot. I never brought it up, I would say, because maybe it wasn't my position, and maybe when your time with us was a little bit of an escape from all the other things that you were managing mentally, and we were just focused, and we had a lot to focus on. So that time was very valuable to us, right? You talked about late nights, and you talked about all the you know class after work and at the library till 4, right? So I never really talked about anything. I don't think anyone wanted to talk about how rigorous that program was. We just were kind of
Yeah.
head down and cranking through. But I always viewed you as probably having one of the more time constricted schedules. And if I found it fascinating how you balanced it all. And it kind of put things in perspective for me. There'd be moments when I thought, wow, this is a lot to handle right now. And then I would look around at the people, in our class and be like, nah, I got this. They're going through a lot too. Yeah. And that was the cool thing about the program is just how tight knit everyone was, right? And how connected everyone was, being only 15 or 16 students in the class, and how we all became such good friends, and again we learned from each other, and we were there to lean on each other, and I found that to be the program that they curated over there, hands down changed my life. I learned so much from it. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, man. I appreciate you getting deep with me for a minute too.
Absolutely, man. That's what it's all about, to help people grow. So to wrap things up, what's a good way people can connect with you? Or, is there anything that you're helping with people, or just want people to be able to get in touch with you in any way?
Yeah, LinkedIn is always a great way to get in touch with me. My life lives on there. Alex Zackucia, I'm sure people will be able to find my name through this podcast too. Something I've been recently helping people with, which I'm pretty passionate about, is preparing for interviews, which is pretty cool. I've people reach out to me on LinkedIn quite often, asking me to help them prep for SaaS related interviews. And then on top of that, I've kind of developed a passion for building resumes. I spent a lot of time on mine, and I have friends that reach out and ask me to kind of critique and reformat and help them, kind of stand out of the stack from a paper sense.
Mhm.
Your first impression is through a piece of paper, and it's incredibly important for you to stand out from the stack and to wow someone when they pull their resume out from the pile. So been really enjoying that. In the little free time that I have, I try to help out as much as I can.
That's awesome, man. This sounds like a great way to add value, to help people. Make sure, if you all need any help with those things, reach out to Alex, or just to connect, or if you have more questions for him about his growth. Alex, thanks so much for, taking the time this evening. We're all busy, and it means a lot that, you're vulnerable, willing to share your story and share your experiences and your knowledge. I think there's so many takeaways that people will be able to apply to their journeys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the episode, like and subscribe, leave a 5-star review, comment with your thoughts and questions to join the conversation, and let's grow together.